This episode of the MLB Guardcast is sponsored by Sadnap Studios. Are you in need of assistance when it comes to digital arts, logo creation, website design, brand building, or designing merch? Then look no further than Sadnap Studios. The team at Sadnap Studios wants to help and make your dreams into reality. Everything is original and organically created, nothing AI. You can follow them and check out some of their incredible work on Instagram at sadnap_studios_art drop. Thanks again to the folks at Sadnap Studios. Go Guards. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is that time again for another episode of the MLB Guardcast, episode number 44. I am Mike Vorhies. With me, as always, Cincinnati Red AAA pitcher, meteorologist, statistician, and the greatest co-host in the history of co-hosts, Bryan Shaw. Bryan, baseball season starts tomorrow. Are you excited?
I'm very excited. I just got back from spring training. It was a really fun time. I think a lot of people are starting to get excited. And I think we've seen a little bit of a preview of what this team can do already, especially in the later games of spring training. So I think it's going to be a fun season.
Absolutely. I'm very jealous that you were in Arizona, although we won yesterday. You were, though, I think, headed home, right? Or did
I did
you?
not see, so I went to the first game at Chase Field on Monday. I did
Okay.
not go to the
Monday
second
night.
game. Yes.
Nice.
Yesterday was my
Okay.
travel day. Um, It was another ballpark I was able to notch off the list of ballparks. I thought it was a great plan to be able to see the Chase Field game with the Guardians playing and get that
hmm
one kind of knocked off while I was going to see spring training.
It's awesome. I love that you're doing that. I think I need to do that as well. There's some stadiums I need to get checked off the list.
There's some
Fenway
close
Park
ones in
is
driving
on my
distance.
list. I've seen PNC in Pittsburgh. I've
You've been
been
to
to
Great American,
Baltimore. I've been to Great American in Cincinnati. I've been to
Detroit.
Wrigley. I've been to Detroit. I need Fenway. Fenway's like the Mecca. That one's got to come off the list. So,
You know, maybe this is a different discussion for another day, but my stadium rankings.
yeah, we got
I
to
think
do
I
that
think
one of these
Fenway's
days.
overrated.
I've never been. I've only
It's
seen
worth.
it
I
in
mean,
like
it's worth going.
photographs and like on TV. Like I just want to see it. I do.
It's
So,
an
well,
old
you know
musty
what?
basement.
That's a teaser. We are going to rank our favorite stadiums, and we're going to have some fun with this. I think we'll do that here very, very soon. I love it. But Brian, baseball starts tomorrow. The Guardians had kind of an up and down spring, like you said. We never really look deep into it. Obviously, we had Marco on, we had Jim Rosenhaus on as well, just kind of talking about spring. And they both kind of said the same thing. Like, guys are still trying to figure it out. Pitchers are trying to get stretched out and get ready to throw 5, 6 innings. They're usually not quite there when the regular season starts. I think 4 is usually what they're shooting for. They might get a fifth if they're able to breeze through it. Um, we have an extension to announce. The new ace of the staff. I know Shane Bieber is going to be really angry that I just said that, but Tanner Bybee gets a huge extension. Brian, can you break it down for us? What do you like about this?
So I don't have the numbers in front of me, but what I like about it is it potentially knocks out his first two free agent years if they do it would take him to 2030, I believe. So it's definitely through
Okay.
2029. The numbers get up to 21 million, I believe, at 2029, and then there's a team option for 21 million in 2030, I believe is how it
All right.
goes.
I just pulled it up. Bybee will receive at least 48 million in guaranteed money. Breaks down as a $2 million signing bonus. He'll get a $3 million salary this season, 4 million in 26, 7 million in 27, 10 million in 28, a big number of 21 million
Yeah.
in 29, and then Cleveland has a club option for
In 30.
21 million in 2030, but it includes a $1 million buyout. So this is huge. Like we knew they had freed up some money. We knew that some extensions would come. I did not expect Tanner Bybee. I knew he was on the list. I assumed it would go Quan one and then Bybee two, but Bybee
Yeah,
goes
I mean,
first.
it's exciting. And I guess Twitter is Twitter, but when they had talked about
Don't
reallocating
call it
money,
that. Elon's going to show up at your house. You gotta call it X. You can't call it Twitter anymore.
when they talked about reallocating that money, I think everybody assumed it was going to go into a position player or into right field.
Mhm.
Um, but it went into the pitching staff, and it went into the starting rotation. It went into more bullpen help. And now you have an extension for Tanner Bybee, and he's locked up through his arbitration years and potentially the first 2 years into his free agency. And then he would have an opportunity to go into free agency, say in his like 31 year, and later if they don't extend him, a second time. But they've reallocated that money, and hopefully there is another extension or two on the way. I would look at the bullpen guys. Potentially Gaddis, Cade, Tim Herron. I think they may look
Yeah,
to lock up a couple of those guys in that range. Gavin, I'm gonna guess doesn't get done this time around because they're probably going to give him a much lower offer given he had a rough year last year. And then Stephen Kwan, I mean, we got our fingers crossed and our fingers crossed, but I'm not sure if that one's gonna end up happening. He there was that whole thing with his Instagram and being unhappy with um his contract offer after his first year. So who knows what'll happen, but they may surprise us. The thing to remember though is that sometimes extensions get announced the first week into the season. We've had
right.
extensions that have been after opening day. So opening day isn't necessarily a deadline, but it's definitely early into the season where okay, let's just focus on the season now.
And we know the Guardians, they hit on a lot of these extensions, and then sometimes they don't hit on these extensions. I.e., Miles Straw gave him a nice little deal, and then he's not even with the team any longer. Same thing with Andres Jimenez. They gave him big money, and his kind of production offensively fell off. So these extensions could be hit or miss. I think this one is a nail right on the head. You lock up a phenomenal pitcher. Tanner Bybee looked really good this spring. I think that our 1-2 punch eventually of Shane Bieber this year and Tanner Bybee is going to be incredible. And then we'll
Well,
talk
and
about the rest of the starting rotation here as we
let's go three deep
season
on that.
preview it.
I think
Yeah.
Gavin's going to have a breakout season. He's
Oh,
looked
and
incredible so far
yeah,
this spring,
he
and
is
in the
he's
game
looked
on Monday,
unhittable.
it was
He
really,
looked
really good.
unhittable. Yeah. I think as long as he is healthy, that 1 through 3 is going to be incredible. But we can't jump ahead. We'll talk about who made the team, and we'll get you ready for the opener against the Kansas City Royals in Kansas City. Not sure where you're going to watch it. Um, that's something we'll discuss as well as we're waiting. We're getting close. We're getting to the witching hour here where Major League Baseball is yet to really announce where you can watch the Guardians other than their streaming service, the Guardians.tv. I know, what was it? Time Warner Cable announced that they have a deal where they will broadcast the Guardians as well. But we'll talk about that. The Guardians said hello. Another roster move. The Guardians said hello to a familiar friend. Who's that friend, you ask? Nolan Jones back with the Guardians. We said goodbye, though, to Tyler Freeman, who looked like he was going to be our starting second baseman this year or center fielder potentially or somewhere on the diamond. He was hitting the ball really well. Brian, what are your thoughts here on this trade?
I was very vocal, especially after Nolan Jones's 2023 and then the poor 2023 season that the Guardians had, especially with their outfielders, about how much I hated that we traded away Nolan Jones, especially since we weren't seeing Juan Brito. Juan Brito at the time, of the trade was in Double A, and he'll be in Triple A to start this season. I'm glad to have Nolan Jones back. He had a rough 2024. He had a back injury and some other injury. He had a back injury, I
Yeah,
know, and
he
then
missed 106 games
yeah, so he
last year.
missed a lot of games and had a tough go. Here's why I like the move. We needed somebody else to hit against right-handers. And especially in a platoon situation in right field with John Kensey Noel, who is going to primarily play against lefties, it looked like that spot was going to go to Will Brennan. He does have a 100 plus WRC plus against right-handed pitching, but Nolan Jones is better in that aspect. Nolan Jones's stats for his career OPS versus that's 2023. We'll go to 2023 in a moment and talk about that season. Nolan Jones's career versus right-handers is 114 WRC plus, whereas Will Brennan is 104.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then you have John Kensey Noel, who will bat against lefties. Last year had a 165 WRC plus versus lefties, or a 968 OPS. Now, if you go back to Nolan Jones's 2023 season, where he was healthy, he had his breakout year, finished in the top of Rookie of the Year voting. His splits there are a 140 WRC plus versus right-handers, and just had an incredible season overall. 20 home runs, I believe, which was more than the entire Guardians outfield that year combined.
And let
So
me
I
let me let me jump in really quick because you're going to have the Xers saying, "Well, he hit it in Coors Field and the ball travels and blah blah blah." Listen, folks, in Progressive Field, we have a shorter porch and right. He's a lefty hitter. There's big potential here for him to
well,
have a 30, 40 home run season if he stays healthy.
we can talk about the
But
Coors Field thing because his away stats were better
so there you
that
go.
season. In
I'm
2023, his
this
WRC plus
to
away was a
me.
148.
I told you when I saw this trade, I think you sent it to me, and I'm like, stop it. We're not. Why are we trading Freeman? Like, come on, the dude's getting ready. Like, he's had a great spring. Looks like he's going to have a huge season. And then I get it more than once, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the Guardians brought back Nolan Jones. Like, am I dreaming? Like, I was stunned when we got rid of him. Yes, he didn't really set the world on fire while he was here, but we didn't really give him a full chance.
No.
And Tyler Freeman, unfortunately, falls victim to a loaded middle infield depth.
Yes.
He's a utility guy. He can play anywhere, but the Guardians really didn't have a set spot for him. Brian Rocchio is your shortstop. It looks as if our second baseman is going to be Gabriel Arias. I think his leash is quite short, but I think he at least starts at second. And you'll see a platoon, maybe. I mean, we'll
Well,
talk about the roster here in a
you
bit, but
have Nolan Jones's counterpart in the original trade of Juan
yeah,
Brito, who was expected to break camp in at second base, or was predicted by a lot of people to break camp at second base. And then eventually the first overall pick, Travis Bazzana. Let's
yep,
keep that in
he's
mind
coming.
that
He's
Travis
coming.
Bazzana is a second baseman. So the thing is that what I read from Terry Pluto is that the Rockies approached the Guardians about this. They said, "Hey, we want Tyler Freeman from you. We'll give you back Nolan Jones." And the Guardians had already told Will Brennan he was making the team, and then they
Yeah,
optioned him.
we gotta talk about that. Will Brennan told he made the opening day roster by manager Stephen Vogt, only to have it taken away from him with the Nolan Jones trade. And I know you said it in our text back and forth that the trade happened like very quickly. Freeman was scheduled to start in a spring training game, and then right before the first pitch, he was pulled.
So
He was
I
removed from
was
the
at
lineup and no explanation given.
we had seen so to go back to about you were expecting him to maybe start at second base. He had started the previous game at second base. He was scheduled to start the next game at second base. And I went to practice that day, and he was the first group out with the infielders with Jose Ramirez in infield practice. So it was him and
Mm-hmm.
Jose. So at that time, with that information, you're thinking, oh, he won the second base battle against versus Gabriel Arias. So, and then all of a sudden he's not in the lineup.
Yeah.
And
So we thought, well, could it be like back tightness, or could it be like he has an injury that we haven't heard of? And I'm like, oh no, not Tyler Freeman. Like the Guardian so far has not been hit by the injury bug. I'm like, not Freeman, please, not Freeman. And then you send me that text like an hour later, the Guardians have traded for Nolan Jones. And I'm like, wait, why? What? Huh? We had him. We got rid of him. Now he's back. Like, this could potentially, guys, be a huge deal with him and John Kenzie Noel in right field.
yeah, I
This could
think
be a really good tandem.
I think it will be. I think I looked back at some of the right field tandem production, um, where you had over 100 WRC plus in that spot, and it's the Geyer, Lonnie Chisenhall grouping. You had Tyler Naquin, a grouping in there with.
I still can't believe he's back, but as a pitcher, I'm very intrigued what happens with Tyler Naquin, but that's a whole
Jordan
nother
Luplow
podcast.
platoons in situations. There was
Oh my gosh.
anytime you can
Did you
platoon
say
your.
Ernie Clement too? Did you throw his name in?
No, he wasn't.
Can't forget
I don't think
about
he was part of
can't forget
that
about Ernie.
that right field platoon.
You did say Lonnie Chisenhall.
Yeah. So there's
Oh,
definitely been over the last 10 years since basically Chu, they have cobbled together a right fielder, and it
yeah.
looks like they're doing
It's
that
been a
again. They're
lot of
platooning
people.
a right fielder. Also adding to the right field position, it's not official yet, but they're adding Jonathan Rodriguez back to the roster because now we have a position player available,
We
and
do.
it looks like it's going to be Jonathan Rodriguez. Now,
Which I'm a little puzzled by, but once you explained it to me why he's making the roster, because he mashes lefties,
yeah.
and I believe we're going to take on some lefties here real early on, it makes sense. Do
Well,
I think he stays? I don't think so. But
w-
if he tears the cover off the ball, that's just going to make it even a bigger logjam in the outfield.
there's the
So,
potential that you have David Fry who's injured, and David
mhm,
Fry hits well against lefties, and he'll eventually come back and maybe have to start off at first base DH because of his elbow and things like that. But Jonathan Rodriguez could play right field, and if you need to move Noel to DH or first base as you're rotating in, Manzardo. But Jonathan Rodriguez in AAA against lefties had a 1039 OPS in 2023 and a 114 OPS
he
against lefties
mashes.
in
I mean, he has
2024.
no options. I've heard he has no more options though. Is that
No,
correct?
I think he does because they would have optioned him. He had been optioned already this
Okay.
year, but they
So
can
then he's got
rescind
a
that.
couple left.
Yeah,
Okay.
they can rescind the option and then they won't use it if he's up on the opening day roster. But
Well, there you go.
but you have potentially a lot of power there against lefties if you in a Noel Rodriguez back to back. I mean, those are some big fellas in
Yeah.
in that lineup, so it'll be really interesting to see. And I think we did see basically the versus lefties lineup on Monday, where you had Stephen Kwan, Jose, Lane Thomas in the three hole, Carlos Santana, John Kenzie Noel, Manzardo DHing, Arias, Naylor, Rocchio. The only change that potentially against lefties is would then Rodriguez slot into that DH spot for Manzardo?
Right.
Personally, I'd be okay with Manzardo playing against both righties and lefties, but they may want to, you know, slowly move that along
That's
as
true.
they're
And the
typical to do.
Guardians will take on a lefty on opening day. Kansas
Right.
City Royals. Cole Reagans last year was 11-9. Saturday they take on a righty and Seth Lugo. The Guardians have yet to announce their starter for that day because they haven't announced their opening day roster. We expect that news to drop at some point today, as the team travels to Kansas City for their 4:10 first pitch in Kansas City. Brian, let's kind of break down who we think is going to make the team, who we
Well,
think
it's pretty much set at this point. I mean, they didn't
it
announce the
is.
rotation. It looks like the at least against the Royals, it's going to go Bibee, Gavin, Ortiz. And I know Ortiz didn't have a good spring, but if you look back to that game on Tuesday, uh, more promising of an outing against starters. Gave up 2 runs,
Was.
looked a
He
lot
did. He
better.
looked a whole lot better.
And, there was talk about that, like, what these guys were working on. We mentioned it with Rosie, we mentioned it with Marco, and Stephen Vogt has talked about it. So I wouldn't worry too much about Ortiz yet, settling in into his new role. And
Mhm.
but then you have Lively as the 4, and Logan Allen, who had a very nice spring as well, wraps up the 5th spot.
See, can I make one tweak? I would love it if the Guardians moved Lively to 3, Ortiz to 4. I would feel a little bit more comfortable after the spring that Ortiz had. Just because I think Lively is a diamond in the rough. The fact that we got him for basically nothing, and he has turned out to be one of the most dependable pitchers for us. I think he has earned that 3 spot in the rotation
Yeah. The thing is
for
though,
now. And I
is
mean,
does
obviously
it really
things
matter?
can. No,
Like
I don't
until the
know.
playoffs, I don't think it
You
doesn't
usually, I
matter
would come
too
out of the
much.
gate with my top 3 pitchers right out of the
Sure.
gate. So you're
The only
telling me right
thing
now
is
they think Ortiz is better than Lively?
the only thing
I
I
know
would
there's a
say
lot of
is
hype with Ortiz.
yeah, the only thing I would say is where it does seem to matter is a lot of times the 5th starter ends up in that day off and then gets skipped.
And
So
I
there's
get that.
that. But the with the rotation, I think, after the initial grouping, maybe the initial 2, I don't think it matters too much who's 3 and 4 is. But what is interesting about that is with Eric Sabrowski's injury is a couple of guys that were potentially going to be in the rotation or go to AAA in the rotation have now moved to the bullpen in Tristan McKenzie and Joey Cantillo.
Yeah, Cantillo, I think is a great pick. He provides another lefty in the bullpen with Tim Herron until Sabrowski is back, and we've also got John Means that we'll have to throw into the rotation or into the bullpen at some point. Another lefty.
And
Shane Bieber
and like
will
you
be
said,
back.
Shane Bieber, yeah.
There's gonna be some movement, but
And
that's later
and
on
let's
down the
not forget about
line.
Doug Nikhazy, who had a really nice
No,
spring.
he's coming too. He's knocking on the door, and again, we are a factory of pitching, so it's coming. In your bullpen, you mentioned obviously you got to start with the closer, Emmanuel Clase. I think he's set to have a phenomenal year. You've got Clase, you've got Hunter Gaddis, Cade Smith, you've got Tim Herron, new name Jacob Junis. I'm excited to see what he can do. He can be that long relief guy. He can be that setup guy. He'll be whatever he is needed to be, which I love.
Yeah, Junis has
You've
starting
got
experience as well.
you've got Paul Sewald. I'm a little nervous with him. He did not have a great spring. He got roughed up. I'm interested to see if he's able to flip the switch and turn it on and be in that back end of that bullpen like we need him to be. He's got closing experience. He's got setup experience. I'm interested with him. Cade Smith. And then eventually we'll see Trevor Stephan when he is ready to go. So we've got arms. I love our bullpen and our rotation right now. Let's jump into the offense. Who's gonna hit the ball and who's gonna play some defense? Catcher, it's a no-brainer. It's Bo Naylor, Austin Hedges. No changes there. I think Bo's going to play what 3 days a week, 4 days a week, maybe. It's going to be interesting to see how they balance
Yeah,
the
I mean, I
catchers.
think you could probably set it up that if Hedges just plays against lefties, that
Yeah,
that probably works out pretty well. And then eventually, who knows if David Fry will get added back to that mix. I'm not sure if he'll be able to play catcher this year with his elbow surgery,
yeah. It's
but he'll
I
eventually
think
be
the
in that
report
mix as well.
was I think the report was he will start as when he comes back and he's healthy, he will DH. And then they'll kind of see what goes from there if he's able to play the field. If he is, it's going to be first base. I don't know if catching is going to be his thing, but we'll see. If his elbow is healed, then he slides in, and that's fine. On the infield, you've got Jose Ramirez, the keystone at third base. He goes nowhere. Brian Rocchio, he's at short. You've got either Santana or Manzardo at first. Whoever is not at first will most likely DH. Santana, heard you talk bad about him because then he hit like a home run in one of the spring training
Don't look at
games.
me. I didn't
And
talk bad about Santana.
you said his numbers were low and should we be concerned, right?
Well,
When we
that was
played
the
that game.
game.
I know, but it was amazing that he heard it and he responds like, "Don't forget about me. I'm here." Now, the question is, who's at second? Is it Gabriel Arias? Is it Daniel Schneemann? Is it a platoon? Because Daniel Schneemann is listed on the roster. I'm assuming he has made it. I assume he'll be a utility.
He's essentially he's essentially part of the reason Daniel Schneemann of why they were able to trade Tyler Freeman is
Yeah,
because the
Schneemann's
two of
he had a good
them
spring.
were a little redundant in terms
Mm-hmm.
of super utility, where Daniel Schneemann can back up in the center field spot.
Yeah.
I think at one point they had said last year that Schneemann had played six different defensive positions,
He can play almost everywhere except catcher, is what if I understand it correctly.
and I'm not
He's
sure he's been
played
at first
everywhere.
base.
I think he played first for Akron at some point.
Oh, okay. Well,
I think he may have done it in Columbus too. I think he has the ability to play all over the diamond. So I'm looking forward to him. I think we could see a really good season. Now, the question is who gets bumped to add Jonathan Rodriguez? Because your outfielders are Nolan Jones, Stephen Kwan, Noel, and your guy, Lane Thomas, who I'm very excited to see him in a full season with the Guardians, healthy, ready to play, our everyday center fielder. I cannot wait.
they swapped Freeman for Nolan Jones, so that was an
Yep,
even swap. And then Will Brennan got optioned to AAA, and
he
it'll be
did.
Jonathan Rodriguez coming back.
Okay. He's not been added to their active roster as of yet. So we're standing at, we have 26 according to the Guardians website, but Jonathan Rodriguez's name is not listed. So I'm
Is
assuming
Will Brennan's listed?
Will Brennan is not listed. So we have two catchers listed, six infielders, and four outfielders listed on the active roster right now. We
They
have a ton
have
of
they
pitchers.
have Slade Ciccone still listed,
They have Slade Ciccone. They've got, oh, yeah, they do. Slade might be the odd man out.
and
They have
Sabrowski's not on the
Sabrowski, John
IL.
Means, and Bieber.
Yeah, that I wouldn't
They've
take.
got to
I
make
think
some.
that's
They
not
got to make
quite.
some
Yeah,
adjustments.
that's not quite
Yeah.
set yet.
Leave
So
it to
there.
me to go by something that's not 100% accurate. That's
Hey,
totally
it's not
normal.
your fault to think that the official MLB site should be updated.
I know, right? So, all right, Brian, we got our team. We know what the lineup is going to be. Now it's time for my fun. It's prediction time. I have fun with this. I love picking your brain and seeing where you think we're going to end up and then where I think we're going to get where we're going to end up. I have our wins and losses prediction, but I'm going to let you go first because I want to see just how off I could be or how over the moon I'm going to be. Let's see.
All
Brian,
right.
out of 162 games?
Okay, so I think the bullpen, there's no way that they can be the overwhelmingly number one bullpen again. They're
Okay.
gonna, even if they regress to five, there's going to be
Okay.
some regression there. But I think the rotation is going to be a lot better. We had talked about Gavin Williams, he'll improve. Logan Allen had a really good spring, he'll improve. You're replacing Ortiz. You're replacing Carlos Carrasco, who was third in starts last year, with Ortiz. So hopefully you get more length out of that rotation. And I do think that the offense is going to be, they were middle of the road last year. I think they'll be slightly better than that. But given all those things, I think they're going to finish with roughly about 90 wins. However, I don't think they're going to win the division with 90 wins. I'm going to stick
Okay.
I'm going to stick with my prediction from last year again, and I'm going to go with the Detroit Tigers winning the division.
Wow. So are we a wild card team then in your
We
opinion?
hopefully 90 gets to the wild card. I know it hasn't in years
Okay.
past, but I would say yes. I would say
Wow.
90 would get us in the wild card.
Usually I'm Mr. Optimistic and I go big or go home. This year I'm taking a step back.
This is
I
well
saw what our
that prediction for me is basically the same one I think I had last year. I had Detroit winning
yeah, I
the
think
division and
I
then
had
the
a
Guardians being the
slightly
wild
above
card.
500 last year, I think. I don't remember. I'll go back and listen to it, but I have us winning 5 less games. I have us going 85 and 77. I do think that the bullpen takes a step back. I agree with you there. I think our offense is going to be better than what it was last year, but I think other teams got better too. I think Detroit is a team that we need to worry about, and I
Hmm.
think Minnesota could potentially, or Kansas City, one of those two could sneak in as well. I do think 85 and 77 gets us into the playoffs. We limp in, and that's when we turn it on and we shock the world because it's Cleveland against the world, and it's World Series or bust for me, like it is every year. But I think we do. Our bullpen is a little worse than last year,
Why do
but
you
I'll
say
take
that?
a top. I think I'm nervous about Paul Sewald. I'm very nervous about
But
how
do
he
you think
fits
he's
in.
better than Scott Barlow? Because that's basically who he's
I
replacing.
kind of think they're 1A and 1B. I'm waiting to see what version of Sewald we get. And then
And
Jacob Junis,
do you think
can
either of
he
those
be the
guys? Well, sorry. Do you think either of those guys, Seawald or Junis, are better than Sandlin Morgan? Because those are the three guys that are out of the bullpen. Is Barlow,
we're
Sandlin,
gonna
Morgan?
miss Eli and Sandlin, I think. But I don't know if Junis is better than Sandlin, and I don't know if Sewald is better than Morgan. So if Jacob Junis can give me what Eli Morgan was to us, then that's great, and I'm all for it. Can Paul Sewald kind of fill in for Trevor Stephan? That's
Uh,
what we need. We
well,
need them to be not necessarily dominant, but not getting shelled either.
sure. And I don't think that they will. Both of those guys, have high leverage situations. But keep in mind, your top four are still Class A, Heron, Gaddis, and Cade Smith.
Yeah. Cade
And
Smith was dominant, but I don't think we get that same Cade Smith this year. I think he
I
he
and that's
levels off
fair.
a bit, and
And
Hunter Gaddis is going to level off a bit.
that's
Heron
fair.
will level off.
You
I
could
mean
you
it.
can expect some regression from maybe some of those
Yeah.
guys, especially because of their usage for last year.
Class A is
That's
still
fair
lights out.
to expect that there might be a little bit of a setback. And like I said, they may fall to the fifth best bullpen, which is still
Which is fine.
pretty damn good.
I will take a top 10 bullpen. I literally I understand we're not going to be number one, but I'll take top 10. Offense, I want us in the top 10. I do. I want our offense to do well. I want Stephen Kwan to be that guy at the top of the order who sets the table. If Jose's hitting second, great. I want Jose to have a huge year this year. Same with Lane Thomas. I think John Kenzie could have a big year. Same with Nolan Jones. If John Kenzie and Nolan Jones are able to platoon the way that we think it'll work, and again, this is obviously with no injuries and we stay healthy all season long, we could have a dominant offense. Will I eat crow if we win 90 games? Absolutely. I'll be the first one to admit I want us to do well. I agree with you, though, Brian. I think Detroit takes the division, and we are now in second place unless something happens to Detroit where Tarek Skubal is learned to be like a robot and something happens. His arm falls off. If he is what makes that team go, if he's a dominant pitcher like he was last year, then Detroit's good. If he's not, then why can't it be us again?
Yeah, and don't forget that they brought back Jack Flaherty. They had
They
traded
did.
him away, and then ironically, after they traded him away, is when they started to go on their run towards the end of the season, and
Yeah.
then they
With what
brought him back
one?
for this
They
year.
only had 2 starting pitchers last year. That was it. And the rest
Yes,
they used
they had
like a
their
bullpen
bullpen
and some,
chaos,
oh
what they
my
called it, or
gosh.
their
They
pitching
took us to the
chaos.
brink. They took us to the brink. So,
Remind me what happened in Game 5 against Scooball. Remind me.
of course, here we go. Lane
Hang
Thomas
on.
with his grand
Who?
slam. Lane Thomas, I believe it was Lane Thomas. One of the
Against
greatest hits in the history of
against
the
the
world.
guy
Yes.
against the that was the eventual American Cy Young winner, right?
It was, and Lane Thomas wasn't even healthy. So this is going to be great. I'm so excited for this season. You guys are again. We say this every year, but I mean it every single year. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. It's Cleveland baseball.
Well,
I
with
look
our
forward to this every year.
absolutely, and with our last few minutes left, I know the TV deal thing has been on a lot of people's minds. We are starting to get some reports, and I looked on my own. We are starting to see some channel placeholders. So,
Okay,
Cox Cable looks like it's channel 80. From Adam World Order on Twitter, Spectrum is channel 306.
okay.
For Maslin Cable, a the former FanDuel Great Lakes is now showing a Guardians logo on a just a screen template. So
I have
looks
Spectrum, so now I'm going to have to do some research when we're done here. I'll fire
so
up
it's
television
looking
and see
like
what it says.
those are in there. Keep in mind that it's not just us that is doing this. You have the Twins. Somebody had told me that the Padres did when last year they didn't announce the cable companies until the day before or the day of. So it may not be until tomorrow that you get the official announcement, but they had wrote expect it in similar places. So if you had Bally, if you have FanDuel, you could probably expect to have Guardians TV. It looks like, YouTube TV and Hulu Live didn't have those channels, so they're probably not going to get them this time. But
Yep.
it's good news that we're starting to see some placeholders in there.
Yeah.
Because
Or
I
you
know,
can do what most folks did, and that's pay the $99.99 for Guardians TV, and you have it all season long and can watch all the games.
yeah, it's nice that there's that alternative option. And that's
Mhm.
the thing is I think people were confused about with that being announced so early that that was the only option. And no, that's not going to be the case. It'll still be on cable and looks like satellite, but Guardians TV app, the streaming app is an alternative which you didn't have before if
Right.
you had YouTube TV, if you had Hulu Live, if you just watch Netflix and you just have a few subscriptions. If you just have Netflix and Disney Plus and you want to watch The Guardians, now you have that option.
Right. And you're looking at only $1.64 per game. That's
Yeah.
that's kind of what the breakdown is. So, for those of you that penny pinch and things like that, that's, hey, I will purchase the Guardians uh the 99. I'm actually going to do it today. So that I have
What?
it.
Go ahead.
What I'm going to purchase it because I'm cutting cable. So I
Oh,
want to
you're
be
you're
able to
dropping your
stream the
Spectrum. I
Guardian.
got you.
Yeah. I'm
I was
getting
gonna
rid of
say you just
Spectrum.
said
It's
you
too
had Spectrum.
expensive.
Why would you drop it?
I know it's getting too expensive
I see.
and it keeps going up instead of down. So we'll start streaming. It's fine. Brian, I'm so excited. The Guardians play tomorrow, 4:10 in Kansas City. I know you're going to be tweeting during the game. I will do most likely the same. I cannot wait. It's Guardians baseball season. Final thoughts. We got about a minute left. Final thoughts.
Have fun, enjoy the ride. If you can't get excited about this in the upcoming season, especially after the run that they had last year, I'm not sure what's going to excite you. It should be a fun ride. They've got reinforcements coming with David Fry and Shane Bieber and John Means and so last year was an incredibly hot start. Not sure if it'll be that hot this year coming out of the gate, but enjoy the ride.
Guess what, guys? They're better than the Browns. That's all I'm going to say. Guardians are better than the Browns. We're not the factory of sadness at the corner of Carnegie, Ontario. So, looking forward to it, folks. Go Guards. You'll hear from us shortly. We'll
See you
see you.
soon.